Family, I hope everybody's had a wonderful weekend. We sure have on this end. I'm excited to join you guys today again. As I say all the time, welcome to another Sunday evening session with Brian and Janice. Today is going to be a great one. It is about reparations. Do we really deserve it? Who knows? We sure hope so. But it looks like the focus has been taken off of that right now. And what we want to do is just kind of bring it on home to you, because for some reason, we always, every time the focus gets on reparation, somewhere we get lost in it, and other things tend to come up, and which pulls us totally away from the cause that we should all be focused and fighting for, and that is reparations. I'm gonna, just say again, I hope everybody's having a wonderful, wonderful weekend. It's been a beautiful, beautiful weekend, and I know people are excited about getting out and being around your loved ones and friends and family, but we still have to keep it in mind and keep it at the forefront of your mind. This is not the time to let up. We still should wear masks. Those that believe in wearing masks, even if you've been vaccinated, be careful, who you're around, who you're interacting with. Know your circle, know them very well. Continue to wear your mask, continue to social distance. That is real important. I, for one, have dealt with several patients that were vaccinated, totally vaccinated, been out 14 days and developed the COVID virus again. So that is very important. Just remember, it is, we're not out of this thing yet. So I do want to remind you to stay cognizant and to be aware of your surroundings. Please keep your mask with you at all times. We were in Walmart, Brian, this weekend, and people just everywhere, no masks, just maybe a handful of people wearing masks. So this is not the time to get excited about not wearing your mask. So keep that in mind. So hopefully everybody's going to remain safe. So Brian, good evening everyone again.
Good evening everyone. Thank you all for joining us again. And as Janice has just what she's been saying and reiterating the fact that we do need to protect ourselves. We're not out of the woods yet by no stretch of the imagination. So I would encourage everyone, as she has said, to continue to
wear your mask.
Don your mask.
Yes. Keep that little distance.
That's right. Don your mask and keep the social distance. Just protect yourself. And I will add to that, take vitamins, take your herbs, drink plenty of water. Do the just basic common sense necessary thing, guys, to protect yourself. I was simply amazed as I was walking through Walmart, and there was just it's like everybody was happy-go-lucky, nothing's ever happened, there's no such thing, COVID, I'm the only one in there, with a mask, trying to be the conscious black man that I am. That's all right. I've protected myself and others. So, guys, we just want to, all jokes aside, definitely encourage you to continue to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to be discussing a serious subject today. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people with some questions as it relates to reparations, the reparations movement that I think is back at the forefront concerning everything that has been going on here lately with the George Floyd case, and now you got the Brown situation that just happened a couple of weeks ago. Reparations is being pushed back to the forefront and being looked at again as it relates to dealing with the inequalities of the system as it relates to black people in general. So not just black men, but black women as well. So we need to continue to be a part of this movement.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you some information where you can actually, you can have the tools necessary, if nothing else, sending emails and writing necessary people, getting involved with certain movements that are actually in place, doing the work, doing the legal work behind this, the reparations movement. So that's what we're going to be kind of discussing today. So last week we talked about race, racism, and black people, which is a perfect segue into reparations, because anytime the discussion of reparations come up, it is always a caveat based on slavery and moving from slavery into racism. So you see those two things, if you will, almost have become synonymous
with one another.
That's right,
yes.
Concerning the reparations movement.
Right.
So what we're going to be discussing today, like I said, do black people actually deserve reparations? What are your thoughts? Do you really think we deserve reparations? And what, if we deserve it, in what form do we deserve reparations?
Wow.
So all of those questions, how should reparations actually be dispersed in the black community if we are, do this, and I won't say monetarily compensation, but if we're due any form of reparations, no matter what form of compensation it is. So let's talk about it, Janice. Let's kind of get into it. So let's go back and I'm going to use our ancestors' voice, like we always do, to kind of just shed some light on some of the things. Reparations is not a movement, I should say, that's just started.
No, it's not.
Okay, this is a long, hard, fought battle that's been going on, guys, for years. And when I say years, over 50, 60 years. This battle did not just start. The reparations movement, actually, we could probably trace it back to the Reconstruction era. And the reason that I say that is because when you look at the General Sherman Order number 15, after the 4 million slaves were released, and America had no clue on what to do with those 4 million Africans
right.
that had now just been
freed.
Mm-hmm. Part of the conception of reparations came, in my opinion, with the General Sherman Order number 15, what we know as 40 acres and a mule. So basically what that said is that the United States owe these 4 million African people something.
Yes.
They have labored, they've built this country. Most of the economy in the South was fueled by their labor. So there was an acknowledgement by the United States government concerning William Sherman and General Order number 15 that said, we owe these people something.
Okay.
That they cannot move forward with and being citizens in these United States without the assistance from the government. Okay. So, like I said, we can go back to that, if you will, as a starting point. Now, we could actually trace it back probably before that, okay? But I'll use that as a starting point because that is the first time that there's an acknowledgement by the U.S. government, like I said, based on the General Order 15, that there's something that should be retributed to these people. Definitely. That's been enslaved, definitely. That have worked, that has nothing. They're coming out of a situation where they own no land, they have no homes,
no money,
they have no monies. That's right. So we need to do something
to help these people
as a government to relieve some of the burden that these people are going to experience now with having to move into a space where they have to provide for themselves
and their families.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Where they have to now become a integrated part of society,
right,
based on not being a captive in bondage in a concentration camp that we called a plantation,
right,
but now being released from that concentration camp and now having to function as any other citizen have to function in reference to providing, and taking care of their family, taking care of themselves. So, like I said, we can go back to General Sherman Order 15 as just a pseudo-type starting point. Okay, to deal with, to look at the actual conception, the actual inception, part of the origin of reparations. But like I said, it's the first time that the government actually acknowledges that something needs to be done. So why is that important, Brian? It's important because it helps us to build a case that the United States government realized that the labor that was produced by the slaves was also the economic engine that drove the southern states' economy to cause them to be the largest economy and the wealthiest economy in the nation. Okay, so the United States government acknowledged that, they realized that. So when we make it a case for reparations, we have to look at that and say, hold up, this is an acknowledgement that by saying that we should retribute these people that have been forced, labor on these plantations, we owe them something. This is our case to say that what the United States started to do in reference to repairing us, that's what reparations is. It is a reparative solution in reference to repairing us based on it not fully coming into realization. The United States owe those descendants of slaves not only labor, the economy, the economics that were due to their descendants, were due to their ancestors, but because they did not follow through with that, the United States owed the descendants of those ancestors, and this matter should be picked up, should be thought and debated for on the floor of the House, so that the Negroes in America see some relief as it relates to being repaired based on what their ancestors went through.
Well, Brian, let me interject here for a minute. If the United States government has recognized that this is owed to us, how is it that everybody else that it was recognized by that they were owed reparations, such as the Jews, and other nationalities? How is it that they've been compensated without any fuss or any ruffling, or it's just been the pen is stroked and signed and the check was written, and here we are, how many years later? And still we have not gotten 100 plus years later, and we haven't gotten a dime. So here it is. What you're gonna see with the hate crimes with the Asians, you're gonna see them getting some reparations soon. Right. You're gonna see. I just believe that, Brian.
But they already have, because Japanese is considered part of the Asian group.
Exactly. The Japanese have already gotten, but they may get additional.
They could possibly.
They could possibly get additional. So what is it that now that the government has already acknowledged, they've been acknowledging this, that we were owed, our ancestors were owed this. Where is it that, how were we missed? I mean, why is it that no one has addressed it? Why isn't it the check wasn't written like it was for the others?
That's a good question. I think that's an excellent question. So let's look back at some of the reparations that the United States have actually paid. Okay.
So these are nationalities that have already been paid their reparations. Am I right?
Yes.
That you're about to give us.
These are examples of reparations payments that the United States have made and that other countries have made that committed some atrocities against other ethnic groups within their country. 1952, Germany paid $822 million to Holocaust survivors, to the descendants of the Holocaust. In 1971, the United States paid $1 billion and 44 million acres of land to the Alaska Natives land settlement for the natives of Alaska. Okay?
The natives of Alaska.
That they displaced in developing and making Alaska a part of the United States. Okay. In 1980, the United States paid $81 million to the Klamaths of Oregon. That was also another native group. In 1985, the United States paid $105 million to the Lakota Indians of South Dakota. In 1985, the United States paid $31 million to the Chippewas of Wisconsin. In 1986, the United States paid $32 million to the Ottawas of Michigan for the violation of the Indian treaties of 1836. Okay, in 1988, Canada paid $230 million, family, to the Japanese Canadians. And we can go on and on and on. And I will show you the book that we're referencing this from. But it's very interesting that these particular groups of people were repaired by the United States. Now, when you think about some of these groups that I named, none of the atrocities that were committed by the United States in reference to these particular groups were worse than
what our ancestors.
That's exactly right.
Experience.
None of them were worse than the treatment and the dehumanization of our ancestors that were forced to come over here.
Wow.
Okay? That were forced labor, that were beaten, and I can go on and on, and I'm going to read some things to our audience that will help bring this into focus as we continue to talk about. But see, the United States have been paying reparations. Now, I can even go to the 2001 tragic 9/11, okay, when the Twin Towers were hit.
Right.
The United States paid reparations to those survivors for the families that were affected based on the 9/11 tragedy. Not only did they pay the first responders' families, but they paid the families, survivors of the families that were actually caught in the Twin Towers and that experienced death based on those towers coming down. Either they could not get out in time, or they jumped to their death.
Yes.
Okay, but the United States actually paid survivors' families. So it's not that the United States have not been paying reparations. We know that the United States also paid, which I think I read there, reparations to the Japanese survivors of the Hiroshima bombing. Okay, so when we look across the board, the United States have been paying reparations since it's been in existence.
Wow.
The only group of people that have not received reparations, who have experienced, like I said, more tragic
than any other
group of people in this country who deserve reparations. It should not even have to be a debate on the floor. I understand the politics of it. So the politics of it, it has to go before the House. There has to be a debate on the floor. The bill has to be passed. All of these things. I understand the politics of it and to getting it into law. But it should not be a question on whether or not we're owed reparations.
I don't think there is. I know that they know, they've acknowledged it. They just hadn't done it because I don't think we have pushed the issue.
Well, we have pushed the issue, but every time the issue is pushed, it is very quietly covered up. And other things tend to overshadow, if you will, the issue of reparations as relates to African Americans. So let me share with you some of the things now that are overshadowing reparations.
Oh, by the way, thanks for watching, Marvin. Thanks for your statement there. We appreciate it.
That's Marisha.
Marisha, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Marisha.
Yeah. Yeah, she says that, yep, they signed the Asian hate crime bill. Yes, they did. But not the George Floyd justice. That's a good point.
Marisha, thank you, Marisha.
Good point. Yes, the Asian hate crime bill was signed. She's exactly right. And the George Floyd justice bill is still have to go before the House. And the Republicans have all come out and declared they are not in support of it. So it's still, they're a perfect example of what we are having to deal with as it relates to black people in this country. So, like we said, reparations have been paid many times before in monetary compensation.
Yes.
In the forms of grants, in the forms of loans,
land.
Okay, in the forms of land. That's exactly right.
Yes.
So this is not, like I said, it's something that should not even be a question.
It should.
Okay. So let's, when we look at this, I think we have to consider, I said that there are a lot of things that tend to overshadow reparations. Once it starts making mainstream again, okay, when we look several years ago, I think it was 2017, 2018, to Ta-Nehisi Coates, when he writes his article, is published about reparations. That article gets a lot of play. He ends up testifying before the U.S. Senate as it relates to reparations. They bring some other African Americans in as well to also testify, but the ones they bring in were not experts as it relates to reparations. So we see it kind of get just glossed over. But some of the things now that's tending to overshadow reparations in the mainstream, and this may catch some of us off guard, but one thing that's overshadowing reparations is BLM movement.
Black Lives Matter. I said that.
Right now.
Well, they got billions. They got millions. I mean billions.
Yeah, they do have millions. But that is tending to overshadow. And see, what is being done with the BLM movement, now that it has been, overtly, or covertly, I should say, infiltrated, and now that the founding members have been pretty much bought out, okay, by the consensus.
Wow.
And now that BLM is being funded to go and stage protests, not really concerned about black issues, not really concerned about black lives. It is more so now a political machine to go and agitate the local systems wherever needed. So it's not a movement anymore that really deals with black issues. Okay, gotcha. They have been co-opted into a diversity movement, They have been co-opted into a LGBTQ movement,
definitely.
and that was always in the plans initially.
Yes, it was.
So the whole BLM movement is a distraction
There we go
away
again.
From reparations.
There we go again.
So we have to look at these different, I guess the different political venues
that are coming up
that tend to overshadow the main issue, whereas concerning black people.
Yes.
And that is black people need to be repaired, because we can attribute 90% of the inequalities in this country as it relates to black people are directly due to the enslavement of our ancestors. There's no debate on that.
No, it's not.
There's no debate on that.
No.
So we need to get back to pushing for reparations.
And a lot of that, Brian, because when you think about it, when you look back at it in the 60s, the 50s and 60s, those people, really, black people were still struggling then.
Right.
Still struggling. And most of us, we are products of those, our parents, our grandparents. You understand what I'm saying? And a lot of the struggles that they had to deal with then, even our children are having to still fight and battle with some of those issues that are still that we're facing today. They're talking about the crime, the escalation of crime that's in our black communities, quote unquote ghettos. Why are they so? Because there were no if we had gotten land from our reparations in a form, people would have homes on their land. You understand?
Well, whenever you're talking about part of the when it comes to black people, part of what happened with us being enslaved is that we were denied the same advancements as the citizenry of this country. Now, what were those things that we were denied? When Europeans came to America, they came on the basis of free land. Okay, they came evading and running away from tyranny. Okay, they came also not only based on free land, but came based on the fact that they were promised wealth and opportunity to create generational wealth. Okay?
Exactly. Yes.
So those were, the escape of tyranny. All right, free land, and free labor to work the land. Okay, so after 1640, the only people that were used for labor after 1640, my fact checkers, after 1640, the Native Americans of the United States were no longer considered viable labor. So, in the 1640s, that's when the church intervenes and the Pope places an edict, what they call a papal bull, an edict in place that all of the explorers could now use the African person as slave forced labor. So now, why wasn't the native person that was already here, who was also African, okay, why were they not able to function? Couple of reasons. Number one is a lot of the explorers, when they came over here and saw how welcoming those people were, they took advantage of them and genocide a lot of the tribes that were here. That's number one. Number two, they brought with them diseases like smallpox, chickenpox, measles, okay? All of these diseases came with them and literally wiped out whole tribes. So when we're talking about, the people, the explorer, the European explorers, the Spaniards, the Portuguese,
yes,
the first explorers that were coming to this country said that these people are weak people. Well, see, they did not have those diseases over here in America at that time. So they resorted back to the fact that the African genotype was much stronger, okay? Immune system was stronger. They were coming from a sub-Saharan area,
yes,
okay? Physiology, they physically
we're stronger.
they were strong. So all of these things factor into these explorers now getting the authority and the sanctioning of the church and the approval of the kings and the queens to use Africans as slaves.
Wow.
So after the 1640s, you no longer saw native people being used as servants or laborers. Okay? So the servitude mechanism also. So when we talk about the servant, those that came over the first 1619 project, when you look at it, they talk about those 7 people that actually came over to America. They were indentured servants. The servitude portion of that went away 2-3 years after they got here. So, the indentured servitude really was a fallacy, more so,
yes,
in my opinion.
It was.
When you start looking at the records, okay,
yeah,
they were forced into labor as well. Okay, forced labor as well, without being able to work their way out of the servitude. So those, when we're talking about, this country, and we look back at what has happened in this country, we have been the only source of labor from the colonies up into the United States till it actually became a United States. So in the Constitution, those forced labor laws were written into the Constitution, okay? To keep those people in bondage, to keep those people working, and to keep those people producing without any type of compensation. That was written into the Constitution. If it were not written into the Constitution, there would not have needed to be a 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which specifically were supposed to deal with black people issues, being released from slavery. And it never, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment did not correct the issues and did not repair black people. So we can make the case also that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments is also a form of acknowledgement that the United States government owed these black people something.
That's exactly right, Brian.
So we could also point to the 1875 Civil Rights Act. Okay, when you have Thaddeus Stevens, Charles Sumner, they make the case that America, in all of its wealth that it has, the wealth has been produced by the laborer who have not been compensated or given the same equalities as those citizens who have used their labor to become wealthy. So they make this argument on the floor. And based on their argument, we see the result becomes the 1875 civil rights laws that were put in place. Okay? So we have to continue to look at that whole dynamic whereas it concerns reparation. We cannot, when we don't know the history, okay, and when we have people going before a commission of Congress or the Senate to testify about reparations, when they do not know the history and they do not understand the correlation between reparations, the slave, and the United States, from its inception, when they were colonies, when it was just 13 colonies, up to it actually becoming a country. So we have to send intelligent people that have been in this fight for years, not some Johnny come lately that just says that we, reparations is owed to our people because we experience hurt. No, we have to show the seriousness of, in the correlation of the slave and the United States, and that there would be no United States without the African American nor his ancestors.
That's exactly right.
Okay, see, because there would be no union if it were not for the black soldiers that fought for the North. The South would have won. Okay, so we can even go back to the Revolutionary War. There would be no United States if it were not for the blacks that fought in the Revolution concerning those colonies.
Exactly.
You understand? So we have to understand that we have been a part of a country, we have been a part of a system, as unfairly and unjust as it is, we are a part of it. We have to make that acknowledgement. The United States have to make that acknowledgement.
Yes.
And that we are owed. This is not something, they're not giving us anything. And a lot of the rebuttal that we see with reparations is like Mitch McConnell, when President Obama was elected, said, I think this is black people's reparation right here. We elect a black president. But Obama made the statement that I'm not the president for black people. I am the president for all people. Okay? So Obama never acknowledged himself that he was black. Okay? So the case that he makes in reference to, look, we put a black man in office, and he is right. It was the whites that elected Obama. Okay, that selected him. Black people went out in mass numbers, yes, but without the white vote, Obama would not have been president. Okay, so he makes a statement, and you have to read through the lines. That is a racist statement, number one. And then number two, this, basically what he's saying, this here takes reparations off the table. We do not need to consider reparations for blacks anymore. Now let me throw out the irony here. In Obama's first 4 years, he had an opportunity, because he had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, he had an opportunity to do something for black people that had never been done before, and he sat on his hands. So when Mitch McConnell says that, he says that in the backdrop. He's really telling the truth. That this could have been our reparations if Obama would have had the courage enough, which he did not. And I know we got a lot of Obama lovers out there. They're still fantasize and romanticize about Obama being a black president, just like they do with Kamala Harris. I'm not so emotional or caught up into that, because they're not doing anything for black people. See, they don't take up the cause and fight for black people, the most mistreated people group in this country since this country's inception. He did not take up that fight. There's no argument. And he could have. And he did not have to take it up alone. He had people that supported him, that would have stood with him. You had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, and you do nothing to change the black condition. You know, I could go on and on about that and some of his policies, but
Miss Reed said something else. I'm loving this, Marisha.
The support he needed, regardless of the House in the Senate, were Democrat. Very possible that you are, I would say, are right, but we will never know that because he did not try. You understand? So what I'm saying is the effort he could have done much more. Okay, what he did was pander to the issues that were on the floor. And in the last 4 years, he took up the LGBTQ banner. Obama is the gay president. He is the one that pushed that to the forefront. So we could go on, but this is not about Obama. He did what he did. I'm like everybody else, proud that he was elected. But when we look at his policies, and maybe one session, I'll do a whole session and we'll break down those things and we could talk about it. But black people, we cannot continue to romanticize about some of those issues. They have been well documented. Black leaders have come out in reference to saying some of the things that he could have gotten done. Mm-hmm. But this is, like I said, it's not about Obama. Obama did not do what he did. And you know, he's gone. Trump didn't do anything. We're in a situation now where Biden is not doing anything, you know, from a standpoint of really making a difference. When you pass a hate crime bill for the Asian community, which the Asian community is, and I've looked this up when I was looking up the numbers as it relates to the hate crime, the Asian community has experienced less than 2% of hate crimes. Okay, less than 2%. Now, listen, the black community, when you look at our so-called population making up 13% of this United States, we have experienced over 80% of the crimes committed to us could actually fall into the hate crime category. And there is still no hate crime bill as it relates to African Americans. So we have to begin to look at some of those things. Okay, we really do. We have to understand the dynamic, like I said, on why the need for reparations is owed to black people. Okay, so now let me give you some of the groups that have been fighting for reparations for some while now. One of the groups is the D12 movement, and that is the December the 12th movement. Okay, it is a black nationalist organization that have fought for reparations nationally as well as internationally in New York. Very, very powerful, very influential when it comes to the reparations movement. They were formed in the late, I think, 70s, somewhere around there, because they celebrated 37-year anniversary in 2017. Okay, so late 70s, early 80s. But they have been very instrumental in the reparations fight. Then you have the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, which is NCOBRA. They have been very instrumental. You have the National Black United Front. They have been very instrumental. And then one of our beautiful ancestors, John Conyers, the Democrat from Michigan, 1989, introduced a reparations bill called H.R. 40 bill that many of you all hear about. And unto his death, John Conyers, every year after 1989, when he introduced the bill, reintroduced it the following year. He fought every year up until his death. He was also part of the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparation. He was part of the brainchild with establishing some of the things that they would fight for, writing the bylaws, putting some of the amendments in place. Okay, brilliant minds. He was also instrumental in gathering a legal team to put together the case for reparations. So John Conyers did a lot. We can't say enough about our ancestor. You know, a shining beacon of light that is still shining. Sheila Jackson Lee takes it up after he passes the torch on to her, and she has been reintroducing the bill ever since the transition of our ancestors. So we have to continue this fight. So those are just some of the groups. Now, I'm going to go back and give you the different stages of reparations in the United States as it relates to black people. The first stage happened from 1865 to 1920. Okay? And that fight in the first stage was to compensate 4 million Africans that had been released.
Okay.
Now, we talked about that when the show first started. That fell up under Reconstruction. That fell up under General Sherman's, okay, Order number 15. So that fell up under several movements. Then you had the women's rights movement and voting movement. Okay, so it fell up under certain movements at that particular time. Okay, so those people that were actually instrumental in that movement, which we know today, one was Brother Marcus Garvey gets involved in that movement. Okay, so stage 2 would continue from 1920 to 1968, where we saw Marcus Garvey and we see Queen Mother Moore as some of the driving forces as it relates to reparations and pushing reparations and fighting for black people to get reparations, legally fighting, okay, and making black people aware of reparations. So in that particular time, you had a lot of black nationalist groups to develop that also pushed reparations. So from 1920 to 1968. And then the third phase is from 1968, which the civil rights struggle falls within that movement as well. The continuation of the civil rights struggle from the 1950s to 1968. That falls within that realm, and you see the Dr. Kings, you see the Malcolm X's. Okay, we see a lot of those brilliant leaders come up. You see the John Lewis's, you see the Stokely Carmichaels. Okay, so we could go on and on. That really within itself was a form, it was a revolution as it relates to equality. So they were, I call, babies being born as it relates to reparations for black people, as it relates to the inequalities and the mistreatment and the dehumanization that black people had experienced here in this country and still are experiencing here in this country. Okay, so those were continuations of the fight that had begun in the 1800s as it relates to reparations. So what we do need to understand, and we should not forget, is that, like I said, reparations is not something that is a new thing. We have been fighting for reparations since we came to this country and stepped off of the boat. Some of it has been in the form of rebellions, you understand? So there are many, many different forms of our fight as it relates to reparations. We need to acknowledge that. We need to understand that, okay? Any questions before I share some things, and I'm gonna read just a few things. Okay, you asked a question that was a very important question. Why hasn't black people really gotten their due as it relates to all these other groups that have been rewarded?
Right. Yes.
And black people have
not. It's not like the government is not aware. So why haven't we gotten out?
That's a good question. It's excellent. I'm sorry I didn't address it then, but I want to address it by reading this. Okay, and this will answer your question. He says, only in societies. Okay, this is Brother Winbush. Okay, he says, only in societies where human beings are considered less than humans, do we have the opportunity for enslavement, concentration camps, and gas chambers. It should be noted that when humans are considered the same as other humans, no one questions whether compensatory measures should be given to an oppressed group.
Wow.
Now listen what he said. He said, when human beings in that society are considered to be human. There is no question about compensatory damages being rewarded to that group. Do you know why black people
because
are rewarded?
Still considered 3/5.
We're still considered to be non-human. You're right.
Wow.
We're still considered to be chattel. We're still considered to be a slave. We're not a citizen yet. So, and these are issues, you all gonna have to get my book when it comes out, that I address in my book.
But we have all of these black politicians. Do they not realize they're sitting up there in Senate and Congress, and do they not realize this?
Well, I think they do realize it, but when you work for the man,
that is
you have to follow
case.
The man's laws.
Yes, you do.
See, and all they don't have any power to change anything. Now let's just be honest, okay? They still work for the man. They really don't have a lot of power. They have obligated themselves to lobbying on behalf of the man. And what the man considers important. See,
what did Marisha say?
Not what is important to our people, okay? But whatever the man considers to be important is where the actual issues lie. Okay?
That's right. I hear you, Marisha. Miss Reese, Mrs. Reese.
So the system has been, unfortunately, set up against, and I shouldn't even say set up against us. The system never included us would be better words.
Right.
Okay? So it never included us. So if the system never included us, when they go to lobby within that system, then quite naturally black people are left out. Okay?
And when you got a Mitch McConnell in there that goes strictly by the book, he doesn't waver.
Well, and like you were saying, we're talking about the same bird, two different, the same bird, two wings. You got a left wing and a right wing, but it's on the same bird.
It is.
And the same blood flows through both of those wings. Okay, so it's not just Mitch McConnell. People talk, you look at Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is more concerned about putting a committee and a commission together for the January 6th debauchery of the white settlers, children's children, that went there and said, if our government that was created for us is not going to work for us, we'll tear this freaking house down. Okay, that's what they did. And Nancy Pelosi is more concerned. She's not concerned about black people's issue in the ghetto. Yet she's, kneeling, pandering to all of this diversive, inclusivity, bull crap. You understand what I'm saying? Wearing the kente cloth. But when it comes to it, why don't you put together a commission? Why don't you further fight for the H.R. 40 bill that John Conyers introduced in 1989 that is still trying to get a committee established to just study reparations?
Wow, and hadn't been able to do that.
But yet you're going to push through the House. You understand what I'm saying? So what I'm showing you is the powers that be are what they are, and they do what they want to do. And when it comes to black people, they are not concerned about the issues that have plagued the black community directly as it relates to the ills of slavery that our ancestors experienced, which were unfortunately passed down to us. And that we still deal with that.
Brian, I say this all the time. All the knowledge, all the book, all the great black conscious people or African studies. If you know all of this information, you're going to tell me they cannot get enough people together to educate us on this, and we come together as a people.
Well, you consider where you were 4 years ago.
Brian's calling me out.
This is what I'm saying. You're no different from the normal black person.
Meaning?
Okay? So when I say meaning, that
I was educated and...
Yes. You're educated, college educated, very learned, very articulate. You've learned the white man's system. Because remember, I told you that the HBCUs was set up to continue to promote and perpetuate the white man's system onto black people, to teach black people the white man's system.
But it's not our fault that we were not taught that when we went to get educated.
Don't have to be your fault. You have to have, from that point, you have to have enough tenacity, just like you had enough tenacity to study whatever you needed to study to get that nursing degree, to say, I want to know where my people came from. What was the experience of my people? You have to have that desire. And there are a lot of black people, believe it or not, the propaganda networks, the TV shows that are created to keep us socially engineered, to keep our minds on other things and other places, as opposed to us picking up a book and then getting involved in some of these grassroots movements so that we can make a difference. And by force, we show in large numbers that we are conscious enough to come together. See, it's not those people that are the college professors that know African studies. It's not me that know African studies, ancient African. The history is good, but it's rallying the ground troops. It's getting to the brothers in the ghetto. You see what I'm saying? Where that's experiencing most of this. It's getting to the sister that has taken up the slogan that she's got children whose her kids are baby daddies. You see what I'm saying? Slogan made possible and made popular by secular television. And the whole concept of baby daddy came out of the mind of a white man and was interjected into the TV shows that targeted black people. See, baby daddy concept did not come out of a black mind, but we readily adopted it. We readily embraced it. And now single mothers, black mothers, all over Alabama and all over this nation, if they got a baby and the dad is, whether the dad is there or not, that's just my baby daddy. We even made a song about it. Came out of the mind of our oppressor. So what am I showing you? I'm showing you that social engineering is real, and when we adopt it, think about this. The thing that enslaved us, when we were being colonized, put on boats, taken out of Africa, okay? We came, and what did we do? We produced crops. Okay?
That's right.
So most of the slaves that were brought to the Americas, to the Caribbeans, into Brazil, they were agricultural slaves. They were builders, industrious slaves. So they taught the settlers how to farm. Now we have to think about it. So when we talk about reparations, this is the greatness of who we are being put on display so a nation could survive. So we taught farming. We were agricultural. So you think about, we were in the cotton fields. We were in the sugar fields. Okay? We were the ones that were teaching settlers how to plant, how to use the seed from the plant to rebirth the plant. We did all of that. So when you think about that, you think about the whole production of what the European liked. They liked sweets, okay? So you get your rum from the sugar cane. Now, so when we think about that, and the biggest manufacturer of rum is the little guy that stands and puts his hand up, Captain Morgan. Think about that. Captain Morgan was one of the biggest enslavers and committed more atrocities than just about any other explorer. But yet we worship him, Captain Morgan. You know, everybody, we drinking rum and Hennessy. See, what am I showing you is we have become consumers and we have become the protectors of white oppression in the black community, in our own community, that produced the Negro that now has become docile, the Negro that will still not pick up a book. Part of that is all tactics and tools that were used to continue to enslave us. Nothing has changed. The only thing is now is formatted in the form of a television program to continue to keep us enslaved. You understand what I'm saying? So they took the chains off of our legs and put an ankle bracelet on our legs. Well, you're still in prison either way. You understand what I'm saying? So what we have to do is we have to understand when it comes to reparations, we have been our own worst enemies in some regard. Because you actually have Negroes that says that we don't deserve reparations or we shouldn't get reparations. You have a Herschel Walker that can get on national TV and says that blacks don't deserve reparations, espousing his Christianity. And there is nowhere in the Bible, if Jesus Christ was here today, he would be fighting for reparations.
Yes, he would.
Okay, but the Christian ideology back from the 1700s, see, you got to go back to Cotton Mather, when Cotton Mather actually debates this, whether blacks are human or non-human, whether they have, you understand, yes, the whole capacity to rationalize, wow, to think as other human beings. This is a Christian man, well respected in the Enlightenment era. So all of these, when we give out knowledge, information is knowledge if it is used to further and advance your people.
But there's still enough of them out there to rally the people. They can,
well,
if you can do a million-man march, you can definitely rally enough people and enlighten them on reparations.
Well, the million-man march, you have to consider that as effective as it was. Effective. It died. Okay? So, why? Why did it die? The concept behind the million-man march, when you look at Brother Farrakhan, and most of us, men here in Alabama, went. Okay? But when you look at the concept was to reestablish the black family, reestablish the black man in his community,
yes,
reestablish the black man as a part of the fabric of these United States as it relates to our people. It was worked well for the first year. I think black men had a sense of purpose. They had a sense of value. Okay? But after that, because it was not continued, it died. It did not continue. Every year there should have been a refurbishing of that. And even with the Million Woman March,
yes,
okay, theirs are better organized than the Million Man because the women, they keep going every year. Okay, so now what we have to realize is, and this is a bad habit that we have of starting something and not finishing it, not seeing the work through. That would have been a perfect time there on Washington.
Yes.
You see, you have to go back to the first what I call Million Man March in 1963. So we have to go back and look at that. But that would have been a perfect time to establish reparations and have all of these black men to commit to the fight for reparations and to actually give a lecture on reparations, the importance of reparations for your children, your grandchildren. See, if you're going to establish the family, you have to repair the family. And part of repairing the family is reparation.
And educating the family.
Okay? Yeah, but that's part of the repair. That's part of the repair. See, educating is part of the repair. All right? So, let me read this and then we got to end. I know this is a good topic here. All right, so to get to where you said, I'm not going to read the brutalities of enslavement, but let's see here. Okay, I do want to read this. Okay. This is where he talks about the importance of understanding the numbers as it relates to the transatlantic slave trade and how it affected black people. He says the slave trade affected the continental African, listen at this, economically, socially, physically, educationally, and culturally. All of that was what slavery did, was took all of that away from us. So education is part of it. Okay, so part of the repair. That's why now public schools have been up under attack for the last 30 years.
Yes.
The attack on public schools is to de-educate the black child. The attack on public schools is to minimize black children going to any school system. That's why we have to create our own schools. See, the attack, and I'll say this again. Let me try to put it in another way. The reason that public schools are being attacked is to push black children and to discourage black children from attending schools and reallocating the funding to schools that will be impartial when it comes to black kids getting an education, meaning that they will look at the child and if he have any tendencies or problems, be it special educational needs, be it any type of labels like ADD, ADHD, ODD now. So those children will be relegated to the public school system. They will not be accepted in the schools that are now being promoted as alternatives. Now listen at the language that's being used. As alternative, which means that these schools are what they call with these charter schools, choice schools, where you can send your child because the public education system is not good enough to educate your child in anymore. Those kids that do not qualify, though, and make no mistake, that every application that is filled out that has a black child name on it, when they request those school records, if that child has any type of violations where he's been sent to a principal office, anything like that, application will automatically be denied. Those systems are impartial and they're not for black children. Now, I'm a big proponent against charter schools because charter schools is nothing more than a system designed education to continue to promote misinformation as it relates to educating our children. It is not a better opportunity. Private schools are very selective. If you don't have money to pay, you cannot go. So you have to be a certain class or status. If you don't get a grant or if you don't get a scholarship as an athlete, then your parents have to be in a certain class bracket in order for your children to go. Now, my thing is, some of these children that have been labeled, some of these children that have been held back purposely because teachers don't know how to teach anymore, okay? Instead of teaching based on information and knowledge, they're teaching based on tests and scoring formats. Those students that are labeled are simply pushed to the back of the class and prepared to enter into the penal system as criminals at some point in time. Okay, so the purpose holding them back, the purpose of not teaching them is creating a mentality that will embrace criminality. So if you don't teach me, then the streets will. Somebody, that child is going to reach out to be taught to someone. There are not enough organizations to intervene for the large amount of our children that are being pushed by the wayside based on a state, be it Alabama, because we live in Alabama, saying that they're going to create more charter schools to give more to choice opportunities to our kids. Our kids are not in that equation. The kids that are in that equation are the Asian children that are coming over now by the groves, the Hispanic children that are coming over here by the groves, and the Indian children that are coming over here by the groves. Now listen, I looked at this and when Booker T. Washington, Magnet School, Brew Tech, all of them, Lovelace in Montgomery was placed on one of the best, they were ranked in the nation as one of the best magnet schools. And each one of them had the percentage of the minority kids that made up that particular school. Now, when I did the research, they had it on WSFA, had it on the newspapers. When I went back and did the research on the percentage of the market, and the first thing I questioned, I said, they doesn't give the ethnicity of the percentage of the children that they're saying make up that minority group. So I wanted to know the ethnicity of the children remember I asked you that. I said, so I asked questions. I'm thinking, there's a reason. That's the first thing I said.
Lamp was number one.
Yeah, Lamp. Lovelace, which is the Lovelace Magnet Pro. I said, there's a reason that they're not telling us the ethnicity of the minorities. Do you know when I did the research, less than 3% of the minority were black. Less than 3%. Wow. So the minority groups were heavily Asian and Indian. No Hispanics. Because the Hispanic was like 0.6%. So literally, maybe 4 or 5 students within that. So what am I saying, family? When we talk about reparations, education was part of what was taken away from us. See, when you repair people, you have to repair everything that you destroyed.
Yes.
You destroyed us economically, you destroyed us physically. See, we ain't even going into the health portion of it in the dynamic there. You destroyed us politically because our systems and ways of governing were totally done away with when we were colonized and brought here. You destroyed us educationally. So all of those avenues have to be repaired. And unfortunately, there is a systemic effort to continue. That is, and I keep saying this, that is what the diversity movement is about. The diversity movement is simply an illusion to keep black people in the dark as it relates to repairing us and making us whole. Reparations. Okay? So we have to understand what happened to us and what is still happening to us. You understand what I'm saying? When COVID first hit, we thought that our melanin would protect us. We thought that black people couldn't get COVID because we were pigmented. We were tragically proven wrong.
Yes.
Because blacks were disproportionately affected more than any other group. Okay? What India is experiencing now, it is the heavily melanated Indian, the African Indian over there, are the ones that are disproportionately being affected more than any other of the Indian groups. See, the Brahminian group, which is part of who Kamala Harris ethnicity is from, they are the least affected. Understand? Because they are the upper white class Indian there. See? So black people all over the world, when you look at Brazil, you look at COVID in Brazil, it was the dark Brazilian, African descendants that were disproportionately affected more than the light. So, I can go on and on. We are owed reparations all over the world, but when we look at home, when we look here in Alabama, when we look as a people group, as a nation, we need to get back to promoting this above anything else. William Darity, one of my former professors, have written a great book. You all need to get these books. They have the information that you need. Most of what we quoted tonight was from the book that I'm currently reading, and it's awesome. And it's given me a better understanding of reparations. So we just have to start doing the work. The ADOS movement right now is doing a lot of legal work. We see in California, the ADOS movement, California has actually put together a reparation, and they have passed it, the state of California. So there are other states that are actually following suit right now. We need to get, if there's some lawyers out there, I would love to get with them and let's see about putting together a lawsuit against the state of Alabama for all the descendants of slaves here.
Oh, Brian.
So, yeah, we need to. I mean, it's nothing to be, we can't be afraid anymore. We need the black people here in the state of Alabama. Alabama, for blacks, is one of the poorest states in the nation.
Yes, it is.
Black poverty in Alabama, black homelessness in Alabama leads the nation. We don't want to talk about that. You understand what I'm saying? We don't care about the people as long as we are in our comfort zone. And we have to stop. Black people have to get away from thinking that politics is going to solve our problems. I'm sorry. It's not. Democratic Party is not going to do anything for us. They're not going to do anything more than the Republican Party. And see, whatever laws they pass are not going to be specifically directed at helping black people. And black people are always going to be on the bottom no matter what they pass because everybody else come before us. Yes. Now, see, we have, our minds won't conceive that for some reason because we have been sold a bill of goods that the Democrats are for us. They have never been for us. They fight for certain issues to promote their agenda, but believe me, if you take away the money, there goes the people. See, black people have always been used as a whipping horse to make money. And the poor have always been used to make the rich richer. That's where that concept comes from. When the capitalist talks about that, the poor gets poor and the rich get richer. Why? Because the rich knows how to use the poor as it relates to consumption and what Dr. W. Du Bois talked about, American assumption. All of these things mean something. You understand what I'm saying? So they understand the system on how the wealthy. Now you think about this. There were more billionaires made during 1 year of the COVID pandemic.
Sure was.
And guess what? Not one black.
Not one black.
So we are continuing to have to deal with these issues that we face on a daily basis. And, nobody can argue that we need to be repaired. Okay, so I want to encourage you all to go to the ADOS movement page and to look at the information on there. They have ways that you can actively get involved. Look at the National Coalition as it relates to African Americans in reparations. Look at the D12 movement. You can go to that website. Let's get involved somehow, even if it's nothing but calling your senator, writing a letter, sending them an email that you want the reparations issue to be addressed again.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? We have to flood. The squeaking wheel gets the oil, so to speak. And I think if enough people make noise, we may not see it in my lifetime, but maybe my grandchildren will see it.
Yes.
We can't be selfish about this struggle and this fight. It's not all about us. It's about those that are coming behind us.
Exactly.
So we have to realize that as elders and as leaders, we are their future, meaning that they learn from us. We are the example that they have to follow. We are their teachers. You understand? So we have to get back to the place of being responsible elders, responsible griots, responsible jednas, all of those words that are used to say that we are our own storytellers, we are our own builders. We have to get back to really doing the work with our children. You understand? And get back to doing the work within our community and not just bidding for a political position. It's disheartening when you have people that simply seek political positions for namesake. And they really don't understand politics. They really don't know how to push issues through. They have not studied what Baba Dick Gregory calls the game. You understand? And they're simply pawns in the game that have not and don't know how to become the queen or the king in the game. So we have to get back to some real stuff and real talk. So I'm going to end there. Let me show you this book that I want to encourage you all. We have a very, I think, intelligent audience that watches. So I want to encourage you all to continue this discussion. And thank you all for participating tonight. Should America pay reparations? Slavery and the raging debate on reparations. That's by Dr. Raymond Winbush. Excellent book. And then, as I mentioned, we have by Dr. William Darity, From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. All right, so I will end there, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope everybody have a wonderful week. Thank you, Marisha, for your wonderful comments, and we're going to get with you.
Interjections.
Yes, we are going to get with you, my love. That's my niece, Marisha. So, love you guys. Love you very much. Phyllis, as always, we love you. We got you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Chad. Thanks everybody that was on tonight. My cousin Cassandra, thank you. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Hey, Cheryl Perkins, I saw you. Thank you. We love you all. Have a blessed night.
Peace, family.